Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, if you've ever felt completely drained after a nightly battle just to get your kids to go to sleep, trust me, you are definitely not alone. So many parents absolutely dread the evening hours, feeling like they're fighting a losing battle against biology. Endless screens, requests for just one more glass of water, the sudden onset of extreme thirst, or, a missing sock emergency at 8:59 p.m. But what if the problem isn't your child's defiance or your parenting skills? What if it's the bedtime strategy itself? In this explainer, we're going to reverse engineer a totally realistic sleep schedule, looking at the science and the practical steps to transform your evenings from a chaotic struggle into a smooth, predictable process. To understand where things usually go off the rails, we have to look at a super common scenario. I like to call it the 9 o'clock illusion. You decide 9 p.m. is a perfectly reasonable time for your child to go to sleep. You announce, all right, it is bedtime. But at 9, your kid is still hunting for clean pajamas, suddenly remembering a major homework assignment, and arguing over handing over their phone. They finally get into bed at 9:20, but don't actually fall asleep until 10:15. You walk away frustrated, concluding that your child simply refuses to go to bed. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the 9 o'clock illusion and why commands fail. When that chaotic 9 o'clock illusion happens, it is incredibly easy to blame the child for stalling or even blame yourself for not being strict enough. But actually, scratch that. The reality is that the system itself is broken, not the child, and certainly not the parent. The fundamental flaw here is that a 9 o'clock bedtime was likely selected as just an arbitrary number. It was basically pulled out of thin air because it sounded like a good time. But selecting a random clock time completely ignores crucial practical factors. It ignores the required wake time, it ignores the actual age-based sleep needs of your specific child, and it ignores the natural time it takes for a human brain and body to actually settle down. This brings us to a massive cognitive reframe. We really need to completely redefine what the word bedtime actually means. Bedtime isn't a command. It is a strategically designed, consistent opportunity for sleep. The goal is not to demand immediate, instant unconsciousness. Instead, it's a repeatable sequence that begins early enough and feels predictable enough that your child can transition naturally from wakefulness to sleep. Section 2, bedtime is a sequence. Calculating backward. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about here. Simple confusion creates so much unnecessary conflict in families. When a parent yells, "It's bedtime," they might literally mean, "You should be unconscious right now." But the child hears that and thinks, "Okay, time to start putting my book away and look for my toothbrush." We fix this misalignment by not starting at the beginning, but at the end, the required wake time in the morning. If they have to be up at 6:30 a.m. for school, we reverse engineer the entire evening. We count back to a lights-out time of 9 p.m. to ensure enough sleep opportunity. But we don't stop there. We count back even further to an in-bed time of 8:50. A routine start at 8:30, and a digital landing when all screens go off at 8 o'clock. Which brings us to Section 3, the 7-part realistic plan. This blueprint takes the overwhelming, highly stressful task of fixing your kid's sleep and turns it into an actionable, step-by-step process that you can start using tonight. Let's look at the first 4 steps. Step 1. Anchor the required wake time, just like we discussed. Step 2. Identify the age-based sleep range. Now remember, a school-age child needs way more sleep than a teenager, but these ranges are really just starting guides. Step 3. Estimate settling time. Just providing sleep opportunity does not guarantee instant sleep. Your child might naturally need 20 minutes just to wind down once they are in bed. And Step 4. Separate the routine start from lights out. They are absolutely not the same thing. Let's zero in on Step 4 for a second with the number 30. If your child's evening routine, brushing teeth, putting on pajamas, reading a book, takes 30 minutes, then that routine absolutely must begin a full 30 minutes before your target lights out time. A huge mistake we parents make is waiting until a child is completely exhausted and showing signs of a total meltdown before starting the routine. By then, they're just way too irritable and disorganized to get through it. Start 30 minutes prior, well before the final collapse. All right, here are the final 3 steps of the plan. Step 5, move the schedule gradually. Step 6, remove obstacles that make the target impossible. If sports, heavy dinners, or late homework are happening right up until lights out, the schedule is going to fail. Move those roadblocks earlier. And Step 7, review the results after 1 to 2 weeks. A bedtime is only successful when the system actually works for your family's real life, not just because a clock displays a certain number. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 4, easing the schedule transition. Even with a flawless 7-part plan, human biology demands a graceful transition. If your child is used to falling asleep at 11 p.m. and suddenly you enforce a strict 9 p.m. lights out rule, it's just going to fail. A sudden change causes serious frustration and long periods of just lying awake staring at the ceiling. The correct approach here is a gradual shift. You move the digital landing, the routine start, and the lights out times all together in small increments, say 15 minutes earlier every few days, until you finally reach your target. We also have to address the teenagers in the room. Pediatric consensus shows us that during adolescence, there is a totally natural biological shift toward later sleep and wake timing. Teenagers are biologically wired to stay up later. When this biological clock clashes with early school start times, it creates a really difficult mismatch. This requires careful shared planning between parent and teen. It is vital to focus the conversation on health, safety, and morning functioning rather than treating their late-night sleepiness as simple disobedience or some sort of moral failure. To get cooperation, regardless of their age, you need to use a brilliant strategy called structured autonomy. The parent sets the firm boundaries, the wake time, the general sleep window, and the rule that phones charge outside the bedroom. But inside those boundaries, the child gets to choose which quiet activity they want to do, which pajamas to wear, or what calm audio track to listen to. Kids are significantly more likely to cooperate when they're given choices inside a firm parent-set structure. It's a real game changer. Section 5. Measuring your morning success. So, how do we know if all this planning is actually working? Well, a bedtime plan isn't judged by what happens at night, but by how the child functions the next morning. Look for real-world signs. Ask yourself, is the child repeatedly falling asleep in the car on the way to school or on the bus, or worst case, nodding off during class? These are blazing red flags of chronic short sleep. A well-rested child should be able to make it through their morning transportation and their school day without their body literally forcing them into microsleeps. So, the crucial point is, does the child require very long weekend recovery sleep? If your kid has to sleep until noon on Saturday and Sunday just to function, that is a glaring indicator that the weekday schedule is absolutely failing them. Extreme weekend sleeping means their weekday routine is not providing nearly enough restorative sleep, and they are building up a massive, unhealthy sleep debt. And remember, if you ask a sleep-deprived kid how they're doing, they will almost always give you the exact same word: fine. You just cannot rely on self-reporting alone. You have to combine their report with your objective observations. Are they having extreme mood swings? Is it taking a massive effort to wake them up? Are their teachers reporting a lack of attention? The observable functioning is what will tell you the real truth about their sleep. Section 6. The 14-Day Bedtime Experiment. To put this all together without an overwhelming lifestyle overhaul, frame the new routine as a 14-day experiment. Doing this instantly lowers the resistance and the stakes for both parents and kids. It's not a permanent law yet. We're just testing a system for 2 weeks to see how we feel. During this experiment, use a super simple tracking table. Just jot down the wake time, the lights out time, and rate the morning difficulty as low, medium, or high. The goal is to record key data points to look for patterns. For example, you might notice that on nights where screen time pushed way past the digital landing time, the morning difficulty was always high. But keep it casual, right? This is about spotting trends, not turning your home into a strict surveillance state. This data is fantastic because it allows you to make practical tweaks. At the end of week 1, look at your tracking table and change just one condition. Maybe you realize you need to move the routine start time 15 minutes earlier. Then, at the end of week 2, evaluate again. Decide if the schedule is actually realistic for your family's actual day-to-day life, or if it needs another small adjustment. I do want to offer a really important caveat here, though. A realistic routine dramatically improves the sleep environment, for sure, but it cannot fix everything. If you set up this perfect system, provide adequate sleep opportunity, and your child is still experiencing persistent sleep difficulty, loud snoring, or severe daytime sleepiness, please seek qualified healthcare guidance. These could be signs of underlying medical conditions like insomnia or sleep apnea that absolutely require a doctor's help. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this fundamental mindset shift. This bedtime is about enough sleep, not control. The ultimate goal of everything we've talked about today is creating a reliable, repeatable opportunity for restorative rest. It is not about demanding absolute, rigid obedience to a clock. When you focus on the biological need for rest rather than just asserting your authority, the battle naturally de-escalates.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer and to a question for your immediate next step. Look at your evening tonight. What is the one obstacle, maybe it's homework, maybe it's dinner time, maybe it's the iPad, that you can move earlier today to help your child begin their wind-down sequence successfully? Don't try to fix the whole shebang at once. Just move one obstacle today, start calculating backward from tomorrow morning, and take your first real step toward peaceful, predictable evenings.